One of the practices we have, which they say is a beginner's practice, and I think it's a practice for the rest of your life, is you sit and you count your breath. And you sit and you count from 1 to 10. And then you count back to 1. Now that sounds pretty easy. The problem is what usually happens by the time you get to about 5, you're in your car driving somewhere. Around 7, you're noticing the person sitting across from you is kind of cute. Around 9, you're noticing somebody over there hasn't bathed in a few days and you're not liking that at all. And you never get to 10. So then you got to start over. Same thing happens again. It happens over and over again. Now after a while it does settle down. But what's amazing is how much of your life you live other than in this moment. How much of it you live in fantasy, how much of it you live in the past, how much of it you live in hopes, in fear, in desire, and how little of it is right here, right now. So when you sit quietly, you get to see that. And you get to see how attached you are to ideas. And how you get the thought train, and it goes on and on. Oh, and if I had to do this over again, and oh man, I just really, and you know, gosh, I really would like to do that, and I really hated that person doing that. And if only next year, you know, it's, and that taco I had last night, oh, and if I could have behaved a little differently on that date, you know, that's our life. That's the life that's going on up here. But what's happening? You're just sitting there, right? And all that stuff's going on. So we sit so that we can actually learn that. That we learn we're nothing but filled with ideas and how deeply attached we are to them. And as we do that, we actually try to learn to let those ideas come up and pass away. Roshi always says that the mind produces ideas like the stomach produces acid. It's utterly involuntary and it's constant. Now you can calm it down. There may be moments when it feels like there's nothing there, but essentially it's an ongoing process. And what we try to do is learn not to be attached to them, not to grab onto them, hold them tightly. Because the interesting thing is there's a meditation practice, Tibetan practice, where one of the things they say is when an idea comes up, ask where it came from, ask what color is it, what weight, what does it weigh, what's its texture, which is to point out it doesn't have any real substance. And then you ask where did it go, because by the time you've asked those questions, it's gone. There's another idea there, another notion. So that's why we sit. And what we hope is that as we sit, at some moments we will actually see we can't find a self. We'll see an idea, we see a thought come up, we see a desire come up, but there's nobody that's desiring. There's just desiring. Or a car passes in the street. There's not a separation between me and the hearing of the car. There's only hearing. I can't find anybody in here who's listening. So we gradually, in our sitting, come to see that the self is a lot closer to the circle on the water than it is the redwood tree in the circle I drew on the ground. So that's why we periodically have intensive sitting periods, as we did the past couple of days, because there's nothing like sitting for a couple of days with your mind to get back in touch with the fact that you're not all those ideas, that you really don't know what you are when you really look inside. Now what does that do for you? That just frees you up in your interaction with other people. It gives you compassion for them and for yourself. Because when you suffer, there's no danger. As I say, when you get up from the cushion and you go out into the world, you immediately, all your desires and things like that start coming back. But when they come up and they make you unhappy, if you really haven't inhabited the fact that you aren't that idea, you're more likely to let go of it. You're more likely to say, huh, I notice, you know, I'm really attracted to this person. I'm really repelled by that person. I really wish I had that car. I really wish I didn't have this, you know, color on my skin, or I wish I didn't have this, my nose wasn't shaped this way. And I wish, and it's nothing but a wish. It's just a hope. And you can let go of it, and your suffering's reduced. Now, here at the Zen Center, Genpo Roshi, who's the teacher, has come up with a technique he calls the big mind technique, which is a way to sort of give you a feel for the insights that traditionally you get through a lot of sitting. And even with the feeling you get from the big mind process, you still need to sit, because you need to actually learn who you are or aren't at a visceral level. You just actually have to experience it over and over and over again. And as soon as you experience it, you need to probably experience it again, because you keep letting go of the experience. But the big mind process, and I'll give you, we can do a little exercise here so you can get a feel for what it's like, because it gives you a taste of what it's like to be in a space where you recognize that you are the water both inside and outside the hula hoop, and that as it flows by, you're not attached to it. And yet it also gives you a feeling for the moments when you think you're the redwood tree. And I think that the experience of the big mind process is valuable, particularly as a motivator and as, if you will, sort of a map of the terrain that you can experience in sitting, meditation, and in living your life day to day. So those of you who haven't done this before, the way this works is I will ask for permission to speak to a voice. Now, we're very flexible, and we all have sort of sub-personalities, if you will. So when I act to speak to a voice, I just ask you to shift a little physically, as though you were whatever that voice is, you know, the voice of anger, the voice of self, the voice of no self. And just try to feel into what that's like. And then I will just ask some questions of that voice, and then we'll shift to another voice. And I think you'll find that you will actually feel into what it's like, what that idea brings up in you emotionally and in your mind. And you'll begin to see that you are a composite of a lot of sometimes irreconcilable ideas and emotions. So the first voice I'd like to speak to, if I might, is the voice of the self. We'll just shift a little. By the self, I mean that which is separate, that which is uniquely you, feels like you. Now, if you just sit with that for a moment, as the self, the separate self.